We're diving into some truly fascinating source material to completely rethink how we view human aging. You know, we usually think of aging as the strict one-way street, a timeline dictated entirely by the calendar and our own human cells. But as it turns out, the latest systems biology tells a profoundly different and honestly, a deeply empowering story. We almost always measure age in years, right? But today, we're looking at breakthrough research suggesting your true biological age might actually be ticking away inside your microbiome. What if I told you that the trillions of bacteria living inside your gut could be aging at a completely different rate than the rest of your body? And even more importantly, what if the state of those microscopic bacteria is actively dictating how quickly your physical body breaks down? So, here's our roadmap for today. First, rethinking how we age. Second, the microbiome age gap. Third, your microscopic body clocks. Fourth, Inflammaging and the gut x-axis. And finally, rewinding your biological clock. Let's just jump right in. Section 1, rethinking how we age. When we talk about growing older, we traditionally focus heavily on our genetics or just general cellular wear and tear. But back in 2023, the hallmarks of aging, which is basically the official framework used by scientists worldwide, got a major update. It officially recognized dysbiosis, or an imbalance in our microbial communities, as a core hallmark of growing old. It's not just a byproduct of aging anymore, it's a primary driver. And this brings us to a really revolutionary concept. Instead of a static genetic blueprint that you're simply stuck with, your microbiome age is dynamic. By feeding data about your unique microbial community into machine learning models, tracking its structure, its functional health, and how it actually interacts with your body over time, scientists can derive a highly sensitive biological clock. It actually predicts your biological age way more accurately than your birth certificate ever could. Moving on to Section 2, the microbiome age gap. Now, what gets really interesting is what happens when this microbial clock gets completely out of sync with your chronological age. We call this the MAG scorecard, which stands for the microbiome age gap. It's simply the difference between your predicted microbial age and your actual age in years. So a positive gap means your microbiome is older than you are. That is a massive red flag, signaling accelerated aging, elevated disease risk, and impending frailty. Conversely, a negative gap means your microbiome is actually younger than you are, and that is the ultimate goal. Having a negative gap strongly correlates with healthy longevity, preserved physical function, and a completely rejuvenated physiological profile. And the research brilliantly illustrates exactly how this plays out over a lifetime. Sliding into that negative MAG territory is literally a game changer. It correlates with better mobility, improved cognitive function, and much lower systemic inflammation. This gap isn't just some technical glitch in an algorithm, it's a profound biological reality that maps your entire health span. To understand exactly how we get a positive or negative score, we have to trace this sort of ecological succession across our lifespan. It's incredibly dynamic. Phase 1, infancy, is all about initial colonization and programming your immune system. Phase 2, childhood, brings complex diet adaptation as you start eating solid foods. Phase 3 introduces hormone-driven shifts during puberty. Then, in Phase 4, adulthood, we hit this nice, stable microbial plateau. But pay close attention to Phase 5, the elderly stage. It turns out severe microbial shifts often begin entirely unnoticed in middle age. This is the critical turning point where individuals start to diverge into either healthy, resilient aging or take a steep drop into frailty-associated dysbiosis. All right, Section 3, your microscopic body clocks. Let's see how this builds across the different ecosystems of your body, because the crazy truth is, you don't just have one clock ticking away. The source material reveals some profound site-specific differences. While your gut clock is primarily driven by inflammation and metabolism, look at your skin. Its aging clock is tied to environmental exposure and the physical decline of your skin barrier. Your oral clock links to hygiene and something super fascinating called the brain-mouth axis. Meanwhile, the reproductive clock is heavily dictated by hormonal shifts, specifically estrogen changes during menopause. So the crucial takeaway here is that these clocks are completely asynchronous. Microbial aging does not just happen all at once in some uniform wave across your body. Each specific niche captures a totally unique facet of functional decay. Gut models focus on systemic metabolic decline, while your skin and oral models index peripheral barriers and localized immunity. This means, mathematically speaking, your skin ecosystem could technically be aging way faster biologically than your digestive tract, or vice versa. Which brings us to section 4, Inflammaging and the gut x-axis. Let's look at the most systemic, influential clock of all, the gut, and how its structural breakdown accelerates aging everywhere else in your body. At the center of this whole process, the protective mucus layer in our gut basically begins to thin out as we age, creating compromised, tight junctions. We commonly call this a leaky gut scenario. When that barrier fails, it allows bacterial toxins, like a molecule called LPS, to flood directly into your bloodstream. This breach triggers massive, widespread inflammaging, sending inflammatory signals to entirely different organs via what researchers call the gut x-axis. A major casualty of this gut dysbiosis is the loss of highly specialized bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs, like butyrate. These SCFAs normally act as potent anti-inflammatory peacekeepers. They maintain the gut barrier and just generally quiet the immune system down. When your microbiome ages and you lose these SCFA-producing bacteria, you essentially lose your internal defense mechanism, tilting your entire body toward chronic inflammation. And this systemic inflammation travels those gut X highways with devastating efficiency. Through the gut-brain axis, toxins cross the blood-brain barrier, directly causing neuroinflammation and cognitive decline. Through the gut-heart axis, those circulating toxins aggressively drive cardiac fibrosis. The gut-skin axis proves that microbial imbalances in your stomach actually lead to enzymatic collagen degradation and wrinkles on your face. And the gut-muscle axis shows how this relentless chronic inflammation accelerates sarcopenia, which is the severe loss of muscle mass leading to physical frailty. Okay, section 5, rewinding your biological clock. I know this sounds a bit daunting, but fortunately, we've arrived at the most empowering part of this explainer, the solutions. We are absolutely not just passengers on this ride, we are in the driver's seat. As the researchers point out, we absolutely cannot change our chronological birth here. It is what it is. However, our microbial communities are inherently modifiable and reversible. They serve as a totally unique anchor point. This means biological aging, when viewed through the lens of the microbiome, is actually a reversible condition. We can actively intervene and force our health trajectory back into that healthy aging zone. By intentionally modulating our microbiome, we can physically narrow the microbiome age gap, rejuvenating our biological systems and literally pulling our biological age down below our chronological age. Science gives us highly actionable tools to actually do this. Dietary modulation is the absolute cornerstone here, specifically pumping up complex dietary fibers that selectively feed those crucial SCFA-producing bacteria we talked about earlier. There's also fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT, where aged microbiomes are entirely replaced, which has shown incredible promise in reversing inflammatory markers. We also see that regular exercise and lifestyle shifts drive deep metabolic reprogramming of these bacteria. Targeted drug therapies, using medications like metformin, actually work partially by remodeling the gut. And of course, specific prebiotics and probiotics can modulate immune functions directly. It's a profound paradigm shift in how we manage our health span. It moves us away from feeling helpless about getting older and puts the power right back into our daily habits. Chronological age is inevitable, sure, but your biological age is highly negotiable.